Good morning, everyone. This is a second day of the early National Signing Day on a Thursday morning. I am Dylan Denmark. That is Graham Marsh on this episode of Denmark and Marsh. Graham, from what it looks like, everything that I've seen, most of the high school guys have committed yesterday. Obviously, there's going to be a few that commit today and tomorrow. Florida's pretty much going to be just outside the top 10. The big pop that everybody was expecting didn't happen. The Solomon Thomas and the Jamie French, the 2 5 stars. Even yesterday morning, I forget the guy's name, the 5-star
Dallas
receiver that
Wilson.
was, Dallas Wilson, that was thinking about going to Florida and flipping from Oregon, ended up staying with Oregon. All in all, was a really good day. The only surprise really was Gelsey, the Riverside tight end / receiver, flipped from Florida to Florida State. But other than that, Graham, everything from what I saw was pretty status quo. Obviously, everybody that flipped from Florida, from the other teams that they've done the last 2 weeks, all stayed with Florida. And the last I saw, Florida was at like 13, I believe, in the 247 recruiting rankings, which is what I usually go off of. So all in all, not a bad day for Florida.
Yeah, Florida's going to need to do two things to finish signing day and have the fan base be really happy. They were going to need to retain most of everybody that was already committed, particularly the high-level blue chip guys. I don't think anybody's all that bent out of shape about. I don't think anybody's bent all that bent out of shape about Tayshawn Gelsey going to Florida State. Sorry, I can't speak this morning. Would like to keep him, but it's not the end of the world. It's not like losing Vernell Brown or something. That was objective number one. Nashawn Montgomery was one of the main top guys that was flirting with Louisville and Alabama. Could have potentially flipped on signing day and not ended up signing with the Gators. Miami was really coming hard after Ben Hanks, although there wasn't a whole lot of smoke that he was actually going to flip to Miami. I think that was more Miami fans just kind of conjuring that up, but there were some rumors out there about Ben Hanks potentially flipping to Miami. That obviously did not happen. He ended up signing with the Gators, no problem. Vernell Brown, of course, all your top guys and all your top, Lagonza Hayward, they flipped. I say flipped. Technically, they just signed him, but he had decommitted from Tennessee a couple days ago. The safety from Georgia, the 4-star safety from Georgia, Lagonza Hayward, decommitted from Tennessee a couple days ago. Pretty much everybody was saying then he's coming to Florida, and that became true yesterday on signing day. That was a big signing. Obviously, Drake Stubbs a couple days ago was a huge get. Something that Florida had going for him, Dylan, was all this recruiting momentum, all these flips, all these guys were recent. Yeah, they just happened like a couple weeks ago. Outside of like Ben Hanks, Vernell Brown, and a few others, like normally the challenge for a coaching staff is if you get all these guys to commit in like July, the challenge is you have a whole season and multiple months where you have to fight off other programs to make sure you actually bring them home. With Florida, because all the momentum was so late, they only had a few weeks that they had to get to signing day to get these guys to be in the class. So that was actually an advantage if you look at it from that perspective. Of course, they had a lot of ground to make up, and had they started the year stronger on the field, judging by the momentum that they got, I mean, Florida probably would have had a top 5 class if they started the season better on the field. And Billy Napier's job stat has not been in question. But back to my original point, Florida needed to accomplish 2 objectives to make the fan base really happy yesterday. One was retain all the main blue chips, mission accomplished. 2 was get one of the 5 stars. There was some Dallas Wilson smoke, some Jamie French smoke, and some Solomon Thomas smoke. They didn't get any of those 3. I'm not going to go as far and say they whiffed on them. I don't know if that's true because I don't know how realistic it was, other than Dallas Wilson yesterday morning, that they were actually going to land all of those, besides a lot of us just looking through orange and blue goggles, I think, trying to sign them. So the one that felt more like a whiff was when you woke up yesterday morning and all the crystal balls going on and everything that was circulating, you really felt like Florida was going to land Dallas Wilson. It really seemed like that. There's a 247 guy, I believe, I forget his name, that literally said Dallas Wilson told Miami's coaching staff yesterday, who was also coming after him, that he was going to Florida. Did the Phil Knight pockets get just that much deeper and make sure that it came home? Probably so. I tweeted yesterday, Dylan, that I think if Florida was battling him for anybody else that he was committed to other than Oregon and Phil Knight and that Nike money, I think they would have done it. But I mean, Oregon was just cleaning up everybody yesterday, man. They're on demon time with everybody they're flipping. It's like it's big boy recruiting over there. So Solomon Thomas, I would have liked them to get, but it was never. I don't think it was ever that realistic. He was coming to Florida. I think he was a Knoll through and through until he wasn't, and when he wasn't, he was going to LSU. I don't know that it was ever that. We like to believe so, as Gators wanting to sign him, but most of the smoke had been saying LSU for a week or two now. So don't really consider that a whiff necessarily. And Jamie French, I don't know if he was ever going to decommit from Texas. So again, would have loved to make one of those happen, and that would have made the fan base ecstatic. But I don't know that Florida ever had a realistic enough chance, especially with Jamie French and Solomon Thomas and other local guys, to say that they were whiffs necessarily.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody corrected me in the chat line. I think Florida native. Yeah, Florida did finish, or Florida's right now at 11, not 13. Just outside the top 10. 7 teams in the SEC in the top 10, and I'm looking at the 247 rankings. On the Solomon Thomas thing, I think it's pretty important to point out LSU had 2 5-stars that were committed to them. One flipped to Michigan, that the number 1 guy in the country under with a quarterback. And then the other one was flipped to Texas. And then when that happens, I think if I had to assume, all their NIL money went to Solomon Thomas, and they gave him a deal that he couldn't refuse. So it wasn't like I saw this comment right here about the whiff. I don't really think it was a whiff. I just think it was more of LSU just gave the guy a lot of money and that he couldn't refuse. And I don't know how much Florida was in play. I know he said his top 3 was Florida State, and LSU. But I mean, here's the thing, dude. We're in a new world. Nothing is official, and I mean, nothing's official until that pen hits paper and that national letter of intent goes to the school, because everything is just he said, she said. When we talk about all the money and, well, I'm considering this, all it takes is for one massive deal to go to a kid and say, "Hey, here's the offer we got right now," and it could be literally 5 minutes before you sign, and you can change your mind. I mean, these are 16, 17, 18-year-olds at the end of the day, and they can be easily swayed. So, that's the biggest thing with what the recruiting world we're in right now.
Yeah, agreed. And I think a couple of weeks ago, before the LSU game kicked off, and Florida started gaining this steam in recruiting and high school recruiting, the conversation was always that Florida needs to just do everything they can to try to salvage this recruiting class and make it just respectable. And then when the portal window opens up, go crazy in the portal. So they did much better than salvage the recruiting class. This is a good recruiting class. It's a strong one. Again, one of those 5-stars have really hammered it home. Yes, of course. Vernell Brown is a 5-star. By the way, it's worth noting, not on 247, but on the composite, Vernell Brown is a 5-star. So they do have a 5-star in the class. But getting multiple would have been really nice. I totally get it. That said, Florida needing to be really active in the portal window was true then. It was true while Florida was gaining high school recruiting momentum, and it's true now. Because while this is a great class, especially DBs, my God, Will Harris was on the tirade. These are mostly, there will be some guys that are going to help you win next year, but a lot of these guys are going to be dudes that need a year or two to develop. So for the here and now, I think we all agree, everybody in this chat, Billy Napier's got to win next year, man. Billy Napier needs 9-10 wins next year. the portal is when you're going to get those guys that are going to help you win next year. The portal, if you go get a portal receiver, that's who's going to be catching passes from DJ Lagway next year. I bet Vernell Brown will play a decent amount, and Deshaun Montgomery will probably get some play as well. But you need, we talked about it last week, or a couple days ago, I should say. I think you need a right tackle in the portal that's probably going to start for you next year. You probably need to go get a receiver. That they've got a lot of bodies at receiver, but I still think with losing Chim DK and Elijah Badger this year to eligibility, you still need, I believe, a receiver that's caught a ton of footballs in college and has 2 or 3 years worth of experience under his belt. Because you got a lot of talent, but you don't have a lot of experience now with those two guys leaving the room. So they need that. And then on defense, mix and match a few guys here and there. But you get a really strong portal class. Now, Florida needs to be arguably the most active team in the country in the portal. You get a really strong portal class to supplement the needs you have right now on this roster. Mix that with most everybody coming back. Mix that with a strong recruiting class where a couple of young guys are going to be able to pinch to come in and help you out next year. Now we're talking. Now we got a really strong roster. Now we got a roster that can give Texas a game, that can give Georgia a game, that's going to give LSU a game. Like now in Miami, like now all of a sudden, all these big games, there's not going to be one game on the schedule next year, I don't believe, assuming Florida does enough in the portal, where you're going to look at the other sideline and say Florida's just completely outmatched and can't compete with this team. That I believe in my heart of hearts that Billy Napier's conducted a decent enough roster to where those days at least can be gone. Doesn't mean they're going to win every game. I'm not saying that. It just means that they can win every game. And when they play well, they should win every game.
Napier spoke, I think, yesterday for like 45 minutes. I think like it was about 5, 6 o'clock. He was asked a question about, how many kids does he anticipate signing out of the portal? And he said, we certainly have certain positions that are specific, like Elia will be based off of player retention, which since the last time we spoke, Kelby Collins is another guy that's hit the portal. So Florida's done a great job of retaining most of their guys.
Jakeem Jackson hit the portal the other day as well.
Yeah. So, that's another main point that is important with all of this is, yes, we all look at the portal. We just think about the intake of, okay, we're getting this guy. Okay, well, also some guys can leave too. And Florida's up to this point so far has done a great job of retaining most of their guys. Eugene Wilson came out the other day and said that he's coming back, which is a major piece of the offense if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, Dylan, I was going to say, you kind of teed it up for me, so I appreciate it. In terms of the guys that Florida has had hit the portal, they're all dudes that are getting pushed out for playing time. There's not one guy so far, you just said it, there's not one guy that Florida expects to be a big-time contributor next year that has left. So what does that tell me? That tells me that people are leaving the portal for playing time reasons, which I understand. And that's college football today, right? If you ain't playing, people are going to leave. I totally understand that, especially if you're getting into your sophomore and junior year and you still don't see a super clear path for you to play a lot ahead. I totally get it. I would hit the portal if I was in that situation. That said, there's no guy that you and I have talked about when we're discussing next year and who you expect to really contribute a lot that has hit the transfer portal. Have we ever mentioned Justice Boone as a big-time guy for next year at all? No. Have we mentioned Kelby Collins? No. Have we mentioned Jakeem Jackson? No. It doesn't mean these guys aren't good players. Most of these guys were high-level recruits that I think could go somewhere and flourish, and as long as they don't go to Florida State or Georgia, I sure hope they do. Best of luck to them. But make no mistake, the reason these guys are leaving the program is because Dijon Johnson has emerged. Triquez Bridges has emerged. Cormani McClain got some playing time, and you probably expect him to get more playing time next year. At the end, in the Florida State game, Jameer Grimsley got in the game. I'm just talking about DBs in that regard, but defensive end, you'd have to imagine like Tyreek Sapp and LJ McCray on the defensive line. Those are your dudes next year, right? Justice Boone's kind of the odd man out, right? Like in what world is Justice Boone a big difference maker next year? He's not. So Andy Jean is another guy. Andy Jean, we were all excited about a couple of years ago, but that's the math of recruiting, man. When you start recruiting high quality players on a year in year out basis, and then you supplement that with the portal, not everybody's going to work out. This happens at Bama, it happens at Georgia, it happens everywhere, and it's okay. I hope Andy Jean goes somewhere and is a really good player, but Aiden Mizell is the guy out of those two that has gotten some playing time, has made a couple of plays, and you could see him being a big time contributor next year. Eugene Wilson's back. Like, where was the path for Andy Jean to get a lot of playing time on the field next year? There really wasn't. So
injury.
Yeah, and he'd been hurt. So it's a good problem to have, Dylan, where Florida is now at the point where they're along with a lot of the other big boys in college football, where even pretty good talent is leaving the program because they're struggling to get on the field. And they're not leaving the program because there's no direction, because the coach is going to get fired, because they're losing. That ain't why they're leaving. They're leaving because they ain't playing. So that's a much better reason for people to hit the portal versus like Trevor Etienne last year leaving the portal was a black eye on the program at the time. I know this year Jaden Ball arguably had a better season. I think he did have a better season by the end of it. So advantage Florida there. But when he left, it was a bad perception. Like, man, Prince Uman and Trevor Etienne, two of Florida's best players, leaving the program. Like that ain't a good look. But it's the script is totally flipped there this year.
Napier also, when he was asked about the transfer portal, said each position we kind of have a quota. We carry this number of players. We'll be hitting that quota. The portal will be the next opportunity to add a player. He gets with Bird Sherrill and the staff, and you anticipate needing one player out of each position, and obviously all the positions that you kind of already mentioned, the offensive line. You always want to add positions on the lines of scrimmage, the receiver, and you want to get experienced guys on the job because as great as it is to get all these high school kids, sometimes an 18-year-old's not ready to play college football, and especially play college football when you're playing, when you're playing a big boy Miami and then A&M and then your SEC gauntlet. I mean, most people kind of forget that they were high school kids less than a year ago, and you're playing I will say for most of the guys that are in the state of Florida, you're only playing really about 5-6 big games, and that's included with your high school run that you make in the playoffs in the month of November. So and you're probably playing in those games. Those teams might have 1 or 2 DBs that can cover you that you're going to be seeing on Saturday. So it is a big adjustment, and also too, kind of like looking ahead in the future with the expanded scholarships going to 105 from 85. This transfer portal is only going to get crazier because you're going to have more guys on rosters and more guys being unhappy. So this transfer portal thing is only going to get more wild. If you think it's crazy now, just keep living.
Coaches were not happy about the expanded scholarship.
Yeah, because it's dumb. I mean, basically,
dumb. I agree.
The NCAA basically just said, all right, you want to expand it? Yep, we're good. All right, we'll leave. And then, the coaches aren't aware because the things are you have a strategy and plan for the rules that are going to happen. And the NCAA just put this out there, I think in August, late July. I remember there's a guy, he doesn't play anymore. He was a quarterback at a Division I program last year, and he hit the portal and it didn't work out. So he went back home and he's doing a regular 9-to-5 job now. And he's about to get married. He's about to do adult stuff. And I told him that they expanded scholarships from 85 to 105, and he was shocked. He was like, "Wait, what?" He couldn't believe it, and he's like, "I'm gonna have a job again." I was like, "Yeah, you might," because everything's changed now. It's the typical NCAA. I mean, at some point,
the coaches I understand coaches being upset about it because you can expand scholarships all you want, man. There's still 11 guys on offense and defense that start.
Right,
but I mean, of guys behind that actually play.
You have a strategy and plan how to build your roster for the rules that are put in place for years down the line. And then now you just drop it, but right before the season, you say, okay, we're going at 105. And it's like, gee, thanks. Like, and there was like no heads up. It wasn't like, oh, this is a plan. It's probably going to get done. But I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, what's going to happen is the SEC and the Big Ten are going to form. There'll be the two mega conferences. The two commissioners will get together and they'll run college football, because the NCAA is just became a joke for what, everything's been the last 6 years. They just come together, put things together. They say yes, they agree on it, and then they just walk out of the room, and then they get mad whenever people break the rules. Because, when a coach pays for a cheeseburger on a recruiting trail, but you can give, me or you could give a kid $8 million, and that's no big deal.
Yeah. Real quick, Dylan, your thoughts on this question? I just popped that on the stage if I can. Wait, hold on.
All right, I can pull it up. Who's it from?
It's from Jalen. Here's the real question to you. Do you think Billy names an OC or brings one in? There we go.
If I had to say yes or no, I'd probably say no.
I would say no as well. I know you and I agree on that, so I wanted to bring it up real quick. But it is an important question. I think a lot of people are still thinking to themselves, like, maybe Billy hires an OC. Like, we'll see. I think, look, Jalen, I completely agree with you. If I were pulling the trigger on this, I would make Billy hire an OC. We talked about this in our post game after the Florida State game, though, Dylan. It's just not. I mean, if you think Billy is starting to have some success in the way that he currently does things in year 3, at the end of year 3, and now they're finally starting to cook a little bit, if you think he's going to change it now, it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. I still believe that would be the way that Florida would end up ultimately, as long as he hired a good one, ultimately ascending to another level, to a more championship caliber level, instead of just being, at the top of average teams right now, which is kind of where they are. It's just not like coaches are extremely stubborn. Coaches don't like doing things that they're not comfortable with and things that go against the way that they've done things in the past. And Billy's never really had an OC as a head coach. So don't believe that's changing, even though I would like to see it.
Yeah, let's add this here. Even if we hire an OC, still going to have to run the style of the Napier. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's dead on.
I mean, remember last year we had the same issue going into last year of, is he going to hire an OC? And it's like, okay, if I've called the offense the first 2 years and I know my job is on the line, why would I hire somebody to come in and put my job status more in jeopardy? Like,
yeah,
I'm going to die on this sword because this is my program and I've been calling the offense, and I'm not going to jeopardize my job for somebody else coming in here. And, I could agree with that.
Or fail, it's going to be in my hands.
Right. So, getting an OC, I could see, there'd be a lot of benefits to it, but I mean, there's not, I don't think it's going to happen. And if it would be more of a collaborative. It would be Billy Napier's offense with some dude just having a call sheet and, him telling the play to the quarterback.
Yeah. Rob says, but that will at least free Billy up to shore up some of the game day operation. Again, totally agree. No arguments for me here. I've been saying for a while that, it's not that Billy Napier's offense is necessarily awful, even though some of his play calling is predictable. I mean, they do score points. It's not like Florida's offense is anemic and can't pick up first downs for the most part. I know that they've had some bad moments, but it's more what Rob is saying. I totally agree. It's the operational things, man. Like, I have a hard time believing that if Billy's not worried about calling plays, that Florida gets this many 12 men on the field penalties on special teams. Right? I have a hard time believing these operational issues. If Billy's not concerned about calling plays, I have a hard time believing there's 2 number 3s on the field against Utah last year. Right? And I'm beating a dead horse a little bit on that. That was over a year ago now, and especially the back half of this past year, they've started to fix it a little bit. If they fix it, you're not going to hear me complain. And they did fix it a decent amount at the end of the season. So they weren't shooting themselves in the foot nearly as much. Look, man, I think, Dylan, philosophically, it's pretty clear what Billy Napier is, right? He is gosh, people mowing stuff outside of my
Hey, man, I appreciate those people mowing.
I know. But there's philosophically what Billy Napier wants to do in his program, and it's pretty clear. Oh, my God.
Moment of silence.
It's so annoying, man. Philosophically, Napier wants to run an offense that doesn't over-confuse players. It's not super complicated. They're not doing a whole lot of things wrinkle-wise, concept-wise. They kind of just run what they run. And he wants to recruit some of the best players in the country to run it and let some of the best players in the country be some of the best players in the country, right? And let their talent speak for it, not necessarily the scheme. At least that's kind of – I don't think he'd ever say that publicly, but at least that's kind of the way I pick up on his offense. I think he wants really talented receivers and running backs with a lot of speed and good linemen that can move bodies, and obviously a guy like DJ Lagway, who's a transcendent player, to run a relatively simple scheme that doesn't overcomplicate them and let them perform exceptionally that way, as opposed to I'm going to out-scheme opponents. Problem with that is when you start losing and the recruits ain't coming, then you're not necessarily going to have that. At Louisiana, he always had better rosters than who he was playing against because he was cleaning them up and recruiting, relatively speaking. The class is good. He's not cleaning up Texas. He's not cleaning up Georgia. He's not cleaning up LSU. He's got to play all these guys. So, but with Lagway at the helm and Lagway being clearly a special player, I mean, I think you and I both believe that he's going to be in the Heisman conversation next year. And hopefully you get as much of the speed and athleticism and difference making on the field as possible. We see what happens.
Yeah. To that point, I don't know if you saw it yesterday. The 2025 schedule will be released. We already know who the opponents are, and the home and away in conference. The home games are going to be Mississippi State, Tennessee, Texas, and then obviously Florida, Georgia will be considered a home game. And then Florida goes to Kentucky, to LSU, to Ole Miss, to Texas A&M, and then obviously you're going to throw in Miami at the beginning of the year. So we already know the opponents. It's going to be South Florida and then that team from Brooklyn because FAMU dropped for whatever reason, which was kind of odd. But we're Long Island. I'm Island boy. Yeah, I'm Island boy.
Can you give me a detailed scouting report on Long Island's football team right now?
Are they from Brooklyn, New York?
I believe they're from Long Island, New York, which I think is next to each other. I'm not good with Northeast geography.
Yeah, I'm not either. Yeah, I have no – dude, I bet they don't have 3 – I could be completely wrong. I don't think they got 5 kids that are D1. Like, I've never heard of the program. Like, there's a lot of obscure, like, programs because I'm a high school football coach, and, like, you just hear, like, things you're like, what? You're like, okay, that's in the middle of Missouri, or that's in the middle of Kansas.
So what you're saying is when we go to the game – when Florida's blowing them out 56-0, Billy's going to call you and I out of the stands to get a couple plays in?
Yeah.
Can't wait.
And if not, we'll just start doing the pod in the middle of the third quarter. So anyway, the schedule is going to be out next Wednesday, and we'll have all the dates, not the times, but we'll have the dates, the bye week. I know, Graham, you don't really care about this. I know a lot of people don't. I look at this, and I think it's I get excited when the schedule comes out because you get to see, how your schedule lines up, when your bye week is. I know Florida always has a bye week before Georgia. I haven't looked at the calendar.
You're a big bye week guy.
Yeah. Well, it depends on like how the calendar falls too. Like this year, sometimes the way the calendar falls, you have an extra week in the season, so you get 2 bye weeks. Is it going to happen? I don't know. And then how the schedule falls. Like, are you going to have all of your big boys again like you did this year in the month of November, which makes it really hard because then you got to have depth at all of your positions like we saw last year, how big of an effect that is. So just want to throw that out there. I'm sure the SEC network, did they say what time? It will be unveiled Wednesday at 7 p.m. 2-hour schedule release on the SEC Network. So there you go. SEC Network will have it at 7. If they did it last year, it'd be like team by team. So you have that to look forward to. And your Gator basketball team. That's apparently crushing it that I didn't see a single dribble from last night. Because I was working. I had to work the J Fund. All right. Don't be mad at me. I had to work Baloo Show and Hacker Show last night. So I
know
couldn't
you got
watch.
YouTube TV on that phone.
Oh, I do. I was looking at the game cast. I was looking at the box. I'm like, oh, we're in a close game. They were up 15. They were pretty good. That was my analysis.
Oh, they're really good, man. But they can play, bro. Walter Clayton is an absolute animal. Alex Condon was unbelievable last night. He's one of the most underappreciated bigs in the country, man. Everybody that's watching college basketball right now and watching the Gators, you're as excited as I am about this team. This team is gonna be hell to pay. The SEC, unfortunately, is murderers row. Oh my God, the SEC is ridiculously good. Duke took down Auburn last night, but Auburn's still really good. Auburn's
What's
top
that?
5 team in the country.
The second loss, Kentucky and Auburn, the 2 losses in that challenge, the SEC ACC
And
challenge.
That's it.
Wow.
The SEC won 12-2.
Dang.
That's crazy. Alabama's really good. Alabama went up to Chapel Hill and destroyed Carolina. Like, it wasn't even close. But the Gators, man, this basketball team is really exciting. I'm really excited about what they can do and what type of run they can make. I think they're going to be, to me, they're the 3rd best team in the SEC. The two teams in Alabama are the 2 best. Maybe Tennessee. I don't know a whole lot about Tennessee yet. I haven't watched a bunch of them yet, but yeah, Jesse, 14-2. That's crazy, isn't it? I'm old enough to remember when the ACC was the premier conference in college basketball. It is the Southeastern Conference these days. 9-7 Florida basketball team can win a championship. I absolutely agree. I think this team, if they get hot at the right time, man, and their one bugaboo right now is turnovers. They turn the ball over. They've been better recently, so they've cleaned up the turnovers and really been spanking people. But sometimes they get a little careless with the ball and have stupid turnovers. But when they don't do that, they are really, really, really tough to beat. I mean, Walter Clayton Jr. is one of the best guards Florida's seen. And you're talking like a decade plus. I mean, he is really, really good. They're such an exciting team, man. They play their ass off. They play really hard defense. They play with energy, and they got skill. When you've got all of those together in college basketball, you've got a dangerous team. So, you know, as football season winds down, I know we're going to still talk about football. It's going to lead our shows still because we're going to talk recruiting and everything still, and we're going to talk bowl game obviously when it comes, and after that we'll be still leading the show football because it steers the ship. But I'm going to make Dylan talk about basketball, you guys. Best believe.
Hey, look, I know that Florida's got a big game against Arizona State, North Carolina, the next 2 games.
And you're going to watch how many dribbles of it?
Saturday, depends what I'm doing. All right. If I'm at home, I'll tune in. Tuesday, I'll watch a little bit. I'll be at work. I got an excuse to get me out of it. So, I work at a sports radio station. I work at a sports radio station. I'm trying to get an excuse to not watch the game. No, I'll probably watch a little bit, man. Arizona State's 8-1. And they score 80 points a game. That's all. That's my analysis for you. And Florida scored 86 points a game. So, yeah, when they get to January, when they get a conference play, I'll start watching, bro. All right.
Fair enough.
Settle on that. All right. I got to roll. I got to eat my breakfast that Tony Smith will pay for because I did not lose our breakfast bowl. If you know, you know. And we'll give you a show next week. The portal window opens Monday. Portal window goes from Monday to December 28th. Schedule release on Wednesday at night. So we still got things to talk about, man. Still got things to talk about. I think your main portal guys are going to hit early in that first week. I don't think your big portal guys are going to be waiting. And exciting times, baby. The pendulum is going up. So we'll see. All right. I'm done, Graham. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week, bro.